You went to school, you probably went through a mentorship program, you've probably done highlights before, they probably look amazing. You're talking yourself out of it, which is making you look not confident, which in turn is giving your client the doubt in their mind that it's not confident. And if you close it with, if you have any problems, feel free to call me. They're going to know or think something went wrong. Like you're just planting the seed for the problem.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Janish, owner of Adored Salon and Adored Signature Hand-Tied Hair Extensions. I'm obsessed with curly hair. I cut it, style it, and extend it, and this podcast is all about my curly girl obsessions that stretch far beyond just curly hair.
Hey there, it's me, Jennifer, from the Curly Girls Obsessions. And if you're here today listening, I am broadcasting live from my kitchen. It's the most presentable room in the house as of right now. So here we are. Okay, I have been getting quite a few DMs on how to handle pushy clients, or how do you go about creating your ideal client, right? Because this is conversation that's everywhere. If it's not about ideal client, it's about boundaries. So without getting too crazy on this one, because as a hairstylist, you do got to have some patience for the clients that don't necessarily show up in the way that you want them to, right? And we've all been there. You offer a client a time slot Tuesday at 4:00 because that's all you have open for a month. And they say, okay, well, I could be there Wednesday at 5. And you don't work until 5, but the client has told you that that's their option to come in. Do you honor your schedule and say that that is not a time frame in which I can offer you? Or do you bow down and say, okay, I'll stay till 5 and miss, say, your daughter's dance recital or your son's soccer game or, I don't know, dinner? And then you compromise, and then the client doesn't even show up at the time that they asked for. They show up 20 minutes late. Happens more than you think it doesn't happen in that type of a situation. Okay, so let me start out by saying why your schedule is super important. This is something that at Adored Salon, I go over with the stylists pretty much quarterly. Like, are your hours benefiting you? Do you feel like you are working enough hours? Do you feel like you're working too many hours? If you have a lot of downtime in your schedule, let's reassess why. And maybe if you're working 5 days, you should work 4 days. You'll feel more productive. You'll be busier when you're here. You'll get more done, and then you'll have time off for yourself, type of thing. With that being said, right, this is why I believe the schedule is very important. And it's important because so many stylists today operate on their own. They don't have a salon as a backbone to where the salon is like, okay, well, these are the hours that we're open. These are the times that the clients can come in. A lot of hairstylists are running their business out of salon suites. And so clients can possibly take more advantage of that because they believe that you're just there whenever they want you to be. So I'm going to take you down this story time with a situation that I had. So I had a client come in for curly extensions for a consultation. This was, it was probably early spring, and it was a struggle to get her in for that consultation. I remember, right? And it was the scenario that I just described to you. And, here I am telling you this. Last spring, I had been doing hair for quite a long time. I should know better, right? But I really wanted the extension install. So I was like, okay, I'll just stay. I didn't have anything going on. And the time that we agreed she would be there was, I believe it was like 4:00. I stopped work at 4:00. She got there at 4:20. Something happened with her Uber, and we started the consultation. Went through the whole consultation, the pricing, the contract, everything for her to say that she was leaving for out of town in a week and needed it done like on Sunday of that week, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I don't work Sunday, so, that's just not going to work. And she said to me, well, I work Monday through Friday. It was a struggle for me to get here at this time. And I'm like, well, what can I say? These are my hours. If you want me, you're going to have to come in between these time frames on these particular days, or you could go to someone else in my salon and you could have it done on, a Saturday, but you're not going to be able to get in for that Saturday appointment for a couple weeks because we're already booked out. Like, this is a long appointment. So she left, and she's like, okay, I'm going to have to think about it. I'm going to text you. And, here nor there, is that a mistake or not? I don't know. But a lot of my clients do have my cell phone number because it's easier to get a hold of me if they've got questions about the extensions that they need answered prior to the appointment. So I don't hear from her. For like 7 months. And then I get a text, sorry for my sniffling, I have a cold. I get a text on, I think it was like December 5th. It was the night of our salon Christmas party. I know that because I was sitting at dinner and my phone beeped and I could see the notification. And I looked at it and I was like, are you kidding me? It was the same person telling me that she was in town for a week and that she wanted to move forward with the extensions on Monday in December. Okay, so my hours behind the chair are Wednesday through Friday. That is what it is. Again, I'm not going to conform to come in on a Monday because it never works out in your best interest. And number two, the salon's not even open Sunday or Monday. So it's like here nor there. But here this client was dictating to me, like, I'm in town for a short amount of time and this is when I can come and get this service. So, like, if we go backwards, the pricing on the extension contract is only good for a month. Things happen, costs go up, like maybe there was a price change within the salon. So there's that. And I just said to her, okay, hey there, super excited to hear that you're here and that you want the extensions, but this is my availability to install them. And the only day that I had open at that time was, I feel like it was December 23rd, because we opened hours at the salon for extended right before the holidays because we cut out from Christmas Eve until after the New Year. And she's like, oh, well, I won't be in town by then. I'm going to be out of town again. I can only do it on that Monday. Now, at this point, I had the runaround multiple times with this client. And usually, I will say that this type of client is 1 in 100. And other clients, like, there's normal conversation, right? Like, oh, okay, you're available at this time. Let me see what I can do. Or that time doesn't work out. What else do you have while that your schedule is open? Not expecting me to come in on my day off, right? So we could tell that just by these conversations that this particular client was a little bit overprivileged in life and probably had a lot of things just given to her for the fact of who knows what, right? Like, I don't know, but that she would expect that I would be able to conform my schedule to her schedule and that I would willingly just do whatever she wants, right? Because it could have been the price point of the extensions that had that mindset. It could have just been her personality, right? But here's two things to keep in mind. The cost of the service is the cost of the service, and my hours are my hours, and they're that way for a reason, okay? So at the end of the day, this text, when I got this, I can only do this day, I finally said to her, like, I text back super nice, and I just said, I don't think we're a good fit for each other because my hours are minimal and your time that's available to get your appointment done with me is also minimal. You might be better off with someone on my team who works more hours. Well, I don't want anyone else on your team. I want you to do this for me. And honestly, too, at that point, I didn't want anybody else on my team to have to deal with this either. So I just said very nicely, then I just don't think we're a good fit. And that was the end of it. She said, okay, thank you. And we were done. So now back to the ideal client. When this conversation is discussed, it's discussed on social media, it's discussed in marketing, it's discussed a lot of the times in classes. I would like to think it is. I mean, I know I discuss it in my extension course, my curly cutting course, my online extension course. Like, you are looking for a specific person who either is your curly client or is your curly extension client. Your curly hair cutting client for me is someone who knows that we cut curly hair wet. Our styles are more elongated, more like, we don't cut like that bobblehead ball that you're seeing everywhere. Not that that's wrong. It's just not something that I would want to look like. And it's not the shape of the way our curly haircuts come out. So, and it's probably in part because we do it wet and we use a slide cutting technique that creates movement throughout. Like, I feel like the way that Adored Salon cuts curly hair is the best. Hands down, the best, right? We not only cut movement and the shape of it, we internally cut the curls so that they perform at their best for every client. So I want someone who off the bat knows that I'm going to cut their hair wet. I had an incident with that one time with a client who came in expecting me to cut her curls dry. And it was the same type of scenario. I wasn't mean about it. I just said that's not what I do. And I'm not willing to compromise my beliefs to give you something that I'm not going to be good at because that's not how I cut it. So she actually left the salon. And it was fine with me because I knew no matter what I did, her belief was that that haircut had to be cut dry. Whatever I did wet wasn't going to add up to what she wanted it to be dry. Like, it just wasn't, right? And that's just not my specialty. And when it comes to the curly extension client, the curly extension client knows that when they get the extensions installed, they're going to have to dedicate time for that. They're going to have to upkeep it, and they're going to have to dedicate time on their styling days, just like you would with straight extensions. Curling is a little bit more involved, I would say, because you've definitely got to make sure that you get it dry and your curl set is set. But I teach you how to do that, right? And you've got to just be willing to trust the process if you want those curly extensions to look the way that you see it on my social media. And I don't compromise on that. I don't lie. I don't make it sound like it's going to be easier than what it is. I tell them everything up front. And I think that that comes with a lot of experience and a lot of confidence, because I know that if I cut corners and I'm not honest, it's going to screw me later because they're going to fuck up their hair. Like, It's just what's going to happen. They're just not going to get it right. And when it comes to the curly client, like when I'm going through the styling technique and someone has sat in my chair and they're like, oh, I just scrunch it with a mousse and I don't like to spend a lot of time with my hair. I'm honest and upfront and I say, you're down for the curly cut and style, or the curly deep treatment cut and style, or the curly experience, whatever it should be. This style that I'm going to do is much more in depth than just putting mousse in your hair and scrunching it. That's why you came to me. That's why you showed up here, because you wanted my information and my knowledge to teach you how to style it better. And it's going to be more in depth. It's going to take you more time. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. And I would say 99% of the time they love it and they're willing to invest that time into doing it right and in the products, because so often people realize that they're not using enough product, or they're not using the right product, or, you know, all these different things come into play. So whatever. But that's very important. And one time, one of my clients, she said to me, this was, I thought, really interesting, because it was on the basis of the fact of the ideal client. And she owns a marketing company. And so she says to me, okay, well, then what is your ideal client? And I go through the list with her and she's like, Jen, have you ever thought that maybe your ideal client is not necessarily the person that looks good right off the bat and is that person? It's the person that wants their hair to look like yours. It's the person that's following you and wants your confidence, or wants, you know, what you have to offer. She said that to me, and I remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, God, have I been thinking about this all wrong? Like, you know, thinking of the ideal client, like writing out her lifestyle, where she shops, what she does, this, that, and the other, and just manifesting that person to sit in my chair. Meanwhile, this other client throws a loop in there and she's like, you know, yeah, possibly it sounds like you're talking to that person, but is that person really the type of person that would be your best friend? Like, it's just easier to talk to someone, pretend like you're talking to someone on social media, like you're talking to your best friend, right? Like you're just shooting the shit back and forth about why you think what you do is the best. Or, you know, that best friend who's going to be in your corner all the time, you know, promoting you or whatever. So I really had to take that into consideration, because there is so much conversation around your ideal client. And, you know, if you attract your ideal client, boundaries won't be hard because they'll respect your boundaries, blah, blah, blah. And when it comes to that whole respecting of the boundaries, the scenario that I just gave you 5 minutes ago is more about the way that you approach the situation, the way that you approach the appointment, the way that you are professional, and nothing else, right? The client is not made the enemy if they're acting like an idiot, right? Like, oh, okay, well, you said you have 4 o'clock Tuesday, but I have 4 o'clock Wednesday. Okay, well, I don't, right? Because odds are the schedule is full. Yes, people will say stuff like that, but it's also your job as the professional to guide them back to where they need to go, right? So, you know, okay, well, I have this. If this doesn't work, then I have this appointment. There, it's fine to go back and forth with that. Maybe that client just thought she was in negotiations with me. I don't know. But you're the one who sets the precedence. The client's really not the enemy in that situation. It's just if they're a right fit or not. And sometimes they're not. And even if they come into the salon and you do the best job ever, but then they call back 5 times, picking at this and picking at that. Again, it's kind of like, okay, how did you leave that appointment? Did you color their hair and you thought to yourself, oh, it's not perfect. If you're like, say you're super hard on yourself, you find the one piece out of the foil that maybe just didn't lift to the pale yellow and it's got a slight tinge of orange in it. So you overthink it in your brain and you say as they leave, if you have any problems, don't hesitate to call me. That's red flag number one. Like, you just set yourself up for a disaster. Don't say it. Because odds are that client isn't going to see that one piece of a half an inch of like slightly warmer hair, you know, and it's knowing that you delivered the perfect product in your mind's eye, right? So like with the hair extension line, we say that the color has a 5 to 10% margin of error, right? It could have 5 to 10% more depth to it than it did from the last batch just because of how it was colored differently. Maybe there was a different person in there. Or maybe the hair is hair and it just reacted slightly different. It's the same with an appointment when you're doing their hair. Like, if the client is happy when they walk out the door, there is no reason to raise question about what you did. Like, they love it. See you later. And we're done until the next time. When you portray that confidence, you put your client's mind at ease and you show that you can deliver results that prove the test of time. And yes, do you stand by your product? Of course, of course, of course, of course. But like I said, you've got to be the one to portray the confidence to know that the job was well done. And sometimes it's like fake it until you make it, right? I've had my fair share of new hairstylists in the salon when they've not been as confident about the product, when they've been nervous, right? And I tell them all the time, on the surface, you need to look like a duck, right? Like, you're just floating along on that water, ever so perfect. It just looks like it comes in stride. But under the water, your feet could be going 240, boom, 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 to propel you through and to get you forward, right? The client doesn't need to see that part. And that part is the stuff you're telling yourself in your brain that's going on, right? You need to compartmentalize it, move it over here, and move forward. You went to school, you probably went through a mentorship program, you've probably done highlights before, they probably look amazing. You're talking yourself out of it, which is making you look not confident, which in turn is giving your client the doubt in their mind that it's not confident. And if you close it with, if you have any problems, feel free to call me. They're going to know or think something went wrong. Like, you're just planting the seed for the problem. So I really do feel like when it comes to these topics of boundaries and ideal client and how to handle situations that might be slightly uncomfortable, it comes down to your confidence level. I was fortunate. I was born with a lot of confidence. I could say that. I'm a Leo. I don't know if it just is that way, like, or I've really mastered faking it until I make it. Regardless of what you think of that, I'll never forget. If you listen to Who is Jennifer Janish podcast #1 and probably 10 other podcasts along the way, I talk about my first client in the one salon that I worked at. And it was really interesting. I started, 2 stylists quit the next day. And I was like, whoa, okay. And this was a time when there was no mentoring, right? Like, you were thrown out to the wolves, girl. There was no like, okay, this is how we close a sale. This is how we do a consult. This is how we do this. No, this is how you do a layered cut. This is how you mix color. No, you just really freaking needed to know it. So these 2 girls left and they had quite a few years of experience on me. I mean, I was a newbie. And this client, her name was Dorothy. I'll never forget her. She had salt and pepper hair and she had kind of like that stacked wedge look. And she was like, and I still to this day look young for my age. I take pride in that. I do get a little bit of Botox to help me out with that. But when I was 17 years old, which is when I went to cut this woman's hair, I really looked young. And she took one look at me and she was like, that baby is not cutting my hair. And I was sweating it, let me tell you. But I couldn't let that show. I knew the level of this salon and how well known they were in Lombard, how well liked they were in my town. Like everybody and anybody went there to get their hair done, you know? So it was like, if I didn't make it there, I was going to really fuck myself over. So what do I say? I look at her and I'm one of those people too that really believes like if you know you can calm someone's nerves down by touching them, I'm that person. I reach out, I touch her arm while I'm sweating, and I say, Dorothy, you're about to get the best haircut you've ever gotten in your life from me. Whether you believe that or not to be true, I can't change that right now, but I can change it after it's done. And she looked at me, and I think she was shocked with the way that I handled that. And she was like, okay, I'll give you one shot. She came to me until she moved out of state. And she loved the way I cut her hair. I probably lived 1,000 lives in that haircut. And I say that because I probably died 1,000 times over from nerves and sweat. But it was like the duck was going just fine on the surface. The feet underneath were pedaling like crazy. My mind, I was losing it, right? I probably could have thrown up too if I remember back, right? And also, I had a lot of eyes on me in that hair salon that day because they knew how upset this woman was because she was pretty vocal before we even started that the salon owner didn't call her to tell her that the other stylist had quit. They just let her come in. So you can imagine. But it turned out fine. And it wouldn't have turned out fine if I would have been shaking, if I would have allowed my voice to be shaking. If she would have seen one drop of sweat, it would have been over. I really and truly had to control my emotions and the way that I felt. And be it a superpower or not, this is a life skill that everybody should learn because it will benefit you in the end. Learning how to control what's going on in your head versus what someone sees is a very powerful skill. If you guys can hear my cats in the background, I don't know what kind of conversation is going on up there between the two of them, but I can hear them. So yes, if your mindset is clear and your confidence is strong, you will have a lot less problems with boundaries and difficult clients. And you won't have to worry as much about who your ideal client is because they will just show up. Your books will make room for them and you will understand how to address them. Like it just will be that way. So to answer your DMs, I hope this podcast was helpful. One, I'm giving you the right to tell the client that they're not going to be a fit for you if that is the case. If it feels like a struggle bus from the beginning, get off because it's just going to continue to be your struggle bus. Had I done that client's hair and put her extensions in, you know, every appointment there on out, she would have messaged me, I'm back in town. I need my raise today, like at 2 p.m. And I would have said, well, no, I can't do that. And she would have been mad, right? Like I would have set myself up for a future filled with disasters had I continued to entertain the idea that her appointments were her appointment. Like every client that you have has to fit within your booked, scheduled time, because everybody that you do outside of that, they think they're special. Every client is special, but they think that they're extra special, and they are always going to expect that you deliver at that level, which goes above and beyond all of your boundaries. And it will set you up for a life of anger and resentment. So learn how to say no, learn how to do it quietly and calmly, keep your emotions in check, and say it confidently. And that will help you through those hard times. I hope this podcast gave you a lot of information today that you needed to hear. If you have a friend that you know this would resonate well with, send it to them. It doesn't even have to just be a hairstylist. Like, this information goes across all careers. Boundaries, emotions in check, and dealing with all different kinds of people. How do you do that? How do you do it tactfully? How do you do it confidently? Everyone could benefit from this conversation, I believe. So I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to follow or subscribe if you don't already to get updated when the next episode drops. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.